This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
It's the left versus the right. It's a 77 WABC debate. 77 WABC.
And welcome into the left versus the right. I am James Flippin alongside Anthony Weiner, and you usually hear us on Saturdays. Here, a special bonus program, Left versus Right, on a Tuesday night. So much to get into, a lot of national breaking news with everything going on with confirmations and spending concerns out of Washington, D.C. But the big news, the breaking news, I'm going to kick it over to Anthony, who's going to tell us exactly what's going on.
Is there any bigger news than they've moved us into prime time after our Saturdays? And they said no one would listen to us on Saturday. Why do they think anyone's going to listen to us on a weeknight? Actually, this is a great vote of confidence for us. Kind of a little bit of an audition, huh?
I think that's fair to put it that way. And I also think that with the particular interesting mix of everything right now, international, Congress, spending, federal government, new administration, there's so much to do, so much that we're uniquely qualified to opine on.
Yeah, that's true. There's no one more qualified than us. And listen, and if Donald Trump's going to give away Gaza to somebody, we should get our bid in.
Give it away. I guess we're taking it. That's the big story. He says that it's going to be American.
Do you understand it?
I think that what's interesting here is that it seems like there's an actual sense of consequence and real result from what actually happened on October 7th in terms of the impact and what the United States is going to do in response. In other words, up until this point, following the brutal terrorist attack on October 7th, and I'm just going to leave aside the ongoing historical debate over Israel and Palestine and borders, and let's just put that off to the side really quickly. The brutality of the October 7th attack, in many ways, I think has been sort of memory hold and almost like put to the side while we have this ongoing, very high-level debate over Israel, Palestine. So right now, what I think Trump is saying is this can't continue. This cannot continue as the status quo. And if it means that he's the bad guy, if he's the big bad imperial who's going to say, we're going to make this safe, relocate these people, and change the reality here, he could take that hit.
Yeah, but he's saying he's going beyond that. I mean, he's saying we're going to take an ownership stake. I don't even know what he means.
Potentially. I mean, he said we're going to make it nice.
This is the thing. He says we should have an ownership and own and develop Gaza. He knows about building. We're going to make it all better than it was. Look, here's what the thing is. This happens every week. It happens now 3 times a day now that he's president. He says something batty, and you guys who are on his team try to figure out a way to make it make sense. Do we really? Now, listen, I am as hawkish as a Democrat as you're going to find, as Zionist as you're going to find. There have only been a couple of scenarios. One is that Israel continues to occupy and control Gaza, not because they wanted to. They left in 2005. Hamas came in, and that didn't work. A 2-state solution, which I and so many other people think is the right thing. And then what these knuckleheads who are protesting at Union Square Park, when they say from the river to the sea, they mean a 1-state solution, and it's anyone but the Jews.
Right.
This is something completely bananas that I've never heard anyone propose before, that we, the United States, the America First president, who's going to get us out of foreign interventions, is going to go occupy a spit of land where there are 2.1 million people and terrorists? What are we talking about?
Well, but I mean, think about all the money that is spent in furtherance of the ongoing war there, right? Think about all the blood and treasure, not just American even, that's gone into the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian Arab conflict. There hasn't really been any solution ever since the creation of Israel, more or less, or the codifying of that whole situation. And it doesn't really seem like there's any end in sight. So I don't understand. Do you think that it should just continue as is?
No, I just think, frankly, I think there has
You have to get Hamas out.
First of all, there has been progress over the course since 1947. One, you had Egypt make peace with the United States.
Right.
Then you had the Abraham Accords that happened, and you had Jordan and the Emirates and everyone else. So now when they first started, they had 22 nations that are war with her. Now there are fewer. I think that ultimately, both within Israel and everywhere else, we got to find some way that the Palestinians can live with some dignity, that they stop attacking Israel, right? But I don't think us occupying if you think Afghanistan was bad, if you think Iraq was bad, imagine occupying that spit of land now.
It's a lot smaller than Afghanistan.
But it's 2.1 million people in that little spit of land.
But he's more or less talking about a massive relocation effort. I don't exactly know the true particulars. Egypt, Jordan, I know they've refused up until this point to do something like that.
Well, in fairness, in defense of Donald Trump, when people say these are refugees, that's really who they're refugees from. There are some people that left Israel proper and moved to Gaza, but a lot of people left Egypt also and left Jordan. Look, you can look at that piece of land and you can make plenty of different arguments. In my way of looking at it, is that in Israel's long-term interest is not to be governing Gaza. Israel doesn't want to be governing Gaza. They want to wash their hands of Gaza, but they can't do it because the moment they do, terrorism moves in and they're back on this. But I just want to return to this. This notion that U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, we'll own it, is what Donald Trump said tonight. You got to admit. I know, I'm sure he's going to dial it back in the next few days. That just makes... We're going to send troops in? You want boots on the ground in Gaza? You're going to look to a mom and a dad of a Marine and say, hey, you're going into Gaza of all places? I just don't see it. And the other idea that he had earlier in the day, it seemed like he almost escalated. Earlier in the day, he was saying, let's move them out of there, which sounded to a lot of people like, let's cleanse it of all those silly Palestinians. I mean, there's not an easy answer. Donald Trump likes easy answers. There's not an easy answer here. You've got to wipe out Hamas, wipe out Hezbollah, figure out a way to stand up a government in Gaza and the West Bank, figure out some way to attach them, give them their own land, and say you just have to have no military might here. That's the two-state solution. But to be honest with you, I don't know what Donald Trump's talking about today.
Well, look, I think that there's a lot of complicated parts to it, a lot of moving pieces. Of course, we're going to have to learn more about what the Trump White House is actually proposing here in the days to come. But we've seen it recently. And Anthony, we're going to get into this later in terms of the ongoing discussion, trade wars, tariffs. Clearly, Trump is attempting to govern in many ways through this art of the deal type approach with, okay, there's a financial incentive here. When it's tariffs and trade, you want to make a good deal, we'll cut off the tariffs. If you do this for border security, it'll be interesting to see if a similar coalition can be formed with Egypt, with Jordan. I mean, you look at all the foreign money that goes to Jordan. There's some leverage there.
But you realize that the problem in Gaza has been going on for a long time. The nations of that region, the Muslim nations, the Arab states in that region have not lifted a finger to help the people of Gaza. And now, because they don't want them, they want to have a fulcrum against Israel, right? The Arab states in the world, the so-called moderate Arab states, they could have tomorrow Saudi Arabia or yesterday Saudi Arabia could have done something to help out. They don't want to own that problem, and yet we do. That's crazy. Look, let me just say this to you, James. You say that there's some kind of an overarching art of the deal thing going on here with Donald Trump. I think he just says words. He's like a room of monkeys on typewriters. You keep waiting for Shakespeare to come out. No. It's just random words spilling out of his mouth, and all of us run around, and we do talk shows trying to figure it out.
I mean, look, you say that, and this is, in fact, the left versus the right. He's Anthony Weiner. I'm James Flippin here on a Tuesday night. But can you at least acknowledge that concept kind of played out in real time this past week, where you saw Canada ultimately strike a deal, Mexico ultimately strike a deal, even Panama, Venezuela? I mean, we're seeing some of this leverage working in Trump's favor, no?
Yeah, I mean, for those of our listeners who don't listen to our show on Saturday, and you should, last week I said that what this is really, I give Donald Trump and his team an A+ for optics, press releases, and the like. We had Mexico agree to do something they had already agreed to do, even more so under Joe Biden, which is put troops at the border. You had Canada announce something that they had announced 6 months ago and give Donald Trump the credit.
But even Trudeau has admitted that there's aspects of the plan that weren't included in the read.
He said he's going to make a fentanyl czar. Do you know how much we imported? How much fentanyl came in from Canada? 49 pounds. I don't know how many that is in Canadian dollars or whatever it is, but not a lot. Mexico is our problem with fentanyl. So yes. Did he create a fentanyl czar in Canada? You can see them laughing at how easy this is to do this deal. But I want to say to you, when he talked about tariffs on the campaign trail against our friends, and then he announces these tariffs and says, because the deal was so bad, He negotiated the deal. It was his own deal, the new version of NAFTA. What is it called? USMCA.
Mm-hmm.
If it was such a bad deal, why did he do it to begin with? It's just utter chaos. They announce stuff and announce it like it's brand new. How can you explain to me, why would you put more of a tariff on Canada than China? China's the bad guy. What did Canada do to us? They just gave us maple syrup and hockey.
Well, but I mean, that's a good line. But at the same time, Canada, through its trade practices, harms American interests with the tariffs and the duties that they have on, making it impossible. For example, right, as Trump has said, we don't need the lumber from Canada. We don't need the raw materials that they have to provide. So why are we involved in this sort of
There are
back and
I think
forth?
they're like a third or a second and third biggest trading partners is Canada and Mexico. We negotiated a deal with them in 2019 when, hold on, let me check my notes. Donald Trump was the president, or 2018, when Donald Trump was the president. And he stood up and said, this is a great deal I got for the American people. We have a relationship with those countries. They're not enemies. All right, if you want to say you want Mexico to do more to stop all right, that I got it. Canada is an utter mystery to me. And he says he wants to be the 51st state. You know who else does? Me. Because they're all liberal up there. That would be like 40 more congressmen for our team.
I mean, I've heard that line, but it all depends on if it's going to be just one big state or if the provinces translate. Because then you're talking about Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. I think we're getting those on the red side.
All right, fair enough. But let me just say this. You, as a small government conservative, you told me all throughout the campaign, America first, America first, America first, mind our own P's and Q's. In the first couple of weeks, Panama, Greenland, fighting with Canada, making Canada the 51st state. Now I want to buy Gaza. This is not what we signed up for. And by the way, are eggs any cheaper? Did we bring down the price of eggs? Did we solve the Ukraine war? Did any of the stuff we really cared about actually happen?
Well, look, the Ukraine and Russia situation, obviously we can discuss that. I do think that there are some early indications that there is at least going to be some potential for talks. Zelensky's going to have to feel the pressure as well in terms of how much money he is or isn't going to get going forward. Again, that aspect of leverage and how that brings people to the negotiating table. In terms of the price of eggs, I mean, look, bird flu is the big concern there. And
whoa, no.
If we're going to get that under control.
Can't bust out bird flu, and I did it under Biden, and you were like hammering me. Look, I think you're doing it again. You are once again sounding much more presidential than your president. When he stands up and says, you got rare earth. Hey, Ukraine, you got rare earth, because he meant rare earth minerals. By the way, Billy is in the studio.
Yes, Billy, our dog, the mascot right now.
Yeah,
and we love
Billy.
Billy.
Comes in with me on Saturday. He's like she's very excited. She's
Billy's
like, boss,
very cute.
You're moving up in the world. But look, all this is, it has been, I have to tell you, and I know that my team does not agree with this, but I think they're wrong. This sitting at a desk, signing documents with a big Sharpie, and then just talking about stuff with the reporter standing right there, I love it. I think it's great. It's a lot of content for us. You never know what the heck. You're reminded again just how chaotic it is with Donald Trump, because he's just saying stuff left and right that's not true, and he's creating policy kind of there on the fly. But it's a very kind of weird, transparent kind of government. He's like signing these documents, whether you think they're meaningful or not. He's like, and this one says we're all going to wear our underwear outside our pants. Any questions? And it's like, it's kind of cool.
But it's interesting that, well, yeah, because I think it's kind of interesting that you say it's weirdly transparent, because I think what was weird was the fact that we never, ever heard from President Biden in a candid way like that.
Yeah.
He was obviously very protected, and that probably got into his cognitive decline as that went on. But even during his campaign, we never heard from the guy. We never had any exposure to him.
Yeah, but Biden isn't the only comparison. Even Ronald Reagan, who revolutionized the modern presidency in terms of like image, they created events around the message, and it was a very structured thing. With Trump, I think it's been like 7 days in a row he sat at that dopey desk signing pieces of paper that are largely meaningless, and then just saying whatever the heck pops into his mind. Oh, condoms for Hamas. Oh, did I say 50 million? I meant 100 million. And it's like the whole world is like, what is going on here? And then the reporters are sitting right there just rant like they're chatting with him. It's kind of cool. I think it might be a little bit too much. I don't know how long you can sustain this, but for now, I kind of like it.
It's the left versus the right. He's Anthony Weiner. I'm James Flippin here on 77 WABC. So I can't quite figure you out, Anthony, because I feel like you say...
I'm a mystery, aren't I? I'm an enigma.
Wrapped in a mystery, in a riddle. Because, you say that you feel like these executive orders are not necessarily making as big an impact as people think, or that they're not really meaningful.
Correct.
Our show that we did on Saturday, you talked about how you think a lot of the talk about deportations and immigration crackdown is a lot of noise, but not a lot of action or in comparison. So are you concerned about the executive orders when it comes to like U.S. aid, for example? So
here's the point that I was making last week, and I'm making it again today, is that government, as we all learned in school, is the three branches of government. You make laws. And the government decide you want to spend money. Congress does a budget and all these various things. You can sign an executive order right now saying the Department of Education goes bye-bye in the morning, which I think he actually did today or tomorrow he's going to do it.
You put some employees on leave,
Yeah,
I think.
And the problem is that ain't your job. You're the executive branch. You don't get to decide whether there's a government agency. Now, you can go to Congress and say, I think there should be. And the same way with immigration. You may want to say and have a press conference say, I closed the border. You didn't close the border. You use the same exact laws that Biden had with the same exact shortcomings that those laws had. And so I'm saying that, for example, today, he signed an executive order that said, I'm going to put maximum pressure on Iran. Dude, you can put pressure on without signing a piece of paper that says you're putting maximum pressure. But here's the point I'm making. He then went on to strike probably of all the presidents of the last 25 years, the most conciliatory tone with Iran that the president's ever taken. I mean, we've been very tough on Iran. And today he was kind of like, I don't really like to do this. I want to make a deal with Iran. So it is turning out to be interesting watching how he does this. But the only point I'm making about whether it's relevant or not is I made that joke from the Woody Allen movie Bananas, where there was the third world despot who declared we're going to start wearing our underwear outside our pants. It's a little bit like that, some of these things. This one is a proclamation saying that, we're all going to spray paint our face orange like Donald Trump does. They're meaningless, but the formula of sitting at a desk and looking like you're doing something, I think it's a pretty successful formula from appearances.
Yeah, and look, obviously there's been no shortage of press coverage of the early days of the Trump administration. We've heard a lot about these executive orders. There is still a lot to talk about. And if you've listened to our programs on Saturday, Anthony's really been trying his hand on some of these headline writing. He's got some new headlines here that we're going to get through tonight. Digging for the deep state. Doge spends a lot. I added one. Did Governor Murphy misspeak? That's just kind of alliterative. That's not really that.
Well, what about this one? Musk invades AID and OPM. OMG. That's the other one I had. That's for the kids out there.
That's definitely OMG. Yeah. So we're going to talk about this. When we come back, we're going to talk about U.S. aid. What is it? What does it do? How important is it to the American taxpayer and just America in general? Also, you have some notes here about the ongoing confirmation battles, and we know that Pam Bondi just got confirmed, I believe, as Attorney General tonight. So
yeah, just clear the rest of the schedule tonight. I think Flippin and I got it. By the way, you know what else I heard? I know we got to go to a break. We're going to do 2 hours on Saturday.
2 hours on Saturday. Yeah. So you get even more left versus
it's
right.
Like,
we're not going to have to constrict it as much.
Yeah, ABF, all about Flippin, or AB, whatever it is.
Right, exactly. He's Anthony Weiner. I'm James Flippin. It's the left versus the right.
It's the left versus the right. From Studio 77, it's a 77 WABC debate. 77 WABC.
A little Smashing Pumpkins on a Tuesday night.
We usually don't have music on Saturdays.
No, we don't. This
and
is
we
a
have
nice
to
treat.
fix that bumper. The bumper says we are from Studio 77. We're in the big studio today.
Right.
Look at us.
Everything's all thrown off.
This is what they do. They give you a little hour here in prime time, and then they whack you. They're like, now you're.
They let you see and then it's like, oh, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Well, look, this is really, really kind of fun and just a good time to be doing this because Trump is always right, Anthony.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing how he does that. Amazing how he does
we're
that.
Sick of winning here on the right.
I just want to know what kind of intellectual pretzel you have to twist yourself into, Mr. Libertarian who says, I want to take over 9 countries by the end of the week.
It's certainly a fascinating development tonight in Gaza, where Trump is saying that it could be the Riviera of the Middle East. And I'm thinking the term American Strip is what we're going to use going forward.
God forbid.
Can't you just see him teeing off a few tee shots right down the American Strip?
Yeah, can you imagine? You sign up to be in the military. It's post 9/11. And you're like, I'm going to Iraq? That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to Afghanistan? Well, that makes a little more sense. I'm going to Gaza? What the heck has happened in the world?
If there is going to be a solution to the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's going to be something totally off the wall. I will say that.
To be honest with you, I mean, again, we're off the subject. We don't have to go back to it. But the elements for a two-state solution was out there during the Wye River Accords, during Camp David II. It was the Palestinians, you recall, that walked away from getting 98%, including half of Jerusalem. They got their own self-governing state and everything else, and they said, no, we got 98%, we want 100%. They're the ones that haven't taken yes for an answer. There's a deal to be done, but it's not just about who's, it's a little bit about land, sure. But Israel has made it clear, abundantly clear, they're willing to make concessions if they get real peace. The problem is you can't – remember with Gaza, they occupied Gaza, okay? Then the international community all said, get out of Gaza, get out of Gaza. They said, okay, we'll leave Gaza. And they left. And what happened? Gaza fell into disrepair.
Power vacuum.
And they elected Hamas.
Right.
Hamas didn't get foisted on them. They elected, in a free and open election, elected Hamas, and it's been hell ever since. So, Israel's not – it's not like it's impossible to do, but when I hear people say, oh, just give them these pieces of land, that piece of land, and we'll be done. No, if you still have armed people to the north, armed people on the water, and people attacking you in the West Bank, there's not going to be peace. So I kind of get the idea for a simple answer, but the simple answer is the Palestinians have – but by the way, the crazy thing about today? USAID, and you led into this, is one of the agencies that we use to help prop up good people in places like the Palestinian territories so they don't turn to Hamas, where we try to build up civil institutions. So we're not doing it, and now those people are getting their plugs pulled.
Well, I mean, I think in theory that's probably what Congress in the 60s and President Kennedy had in mind for USAID. But since then, it seems as though it's become the CIA's slush fund for doing sort of whatever it is they want to do around the world. And we could get into the nitty gritty of that. It's a little bit nuanced and sort
calling it nuance is giving yourself too much credit.
But just to say,
this
okay,
once
fine.
again,
You want to touch on
James Flippin pulls some dirt under the fingernails of the internet and is now going to make it like it's news.
No, that is
what are you
absolutely
even
untrue.
talking about?
That
but
is
go ahead. All right, let's hear your case for shutting down AID.
Okay, so I think that even if you were just to say that USAID in a overarching way is kind of a nice idea, probably a virtuous thing, like a good goal. Like, in other words, if it was something, I always thought that USAID, and to the extent that existed, that it was doing things like putting up mosquito nets and helping mitigate against the risk of floods and maybe vaccinating kids for polio somewhere and things like that. But it turns out that instead it's $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplace, $700,000 for a DEI musical in Ireland, $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. I mean, some of the stuff I'm reading here, Anthony. Transgender operas, transgender comic books.
Why'd you say I know that one? What is? You're getting into my hobbies now?
In other words, the hits that I'm getting into here with some of this weird stuff.
I know that was said from the White House podium. You know what else was said? That we're giving $50 million of condoms to Hamas. So I don't believe any of the stuff I read. But if you want to go into it and say that there are things in there that are like literally tens of thousands of dollars that shouldn't be in there, fine, let's take them out. But overall, the money that is going for health things, is going for HIV and AIDS, is going for health care. But here's the thing. We're competing against China. That's our big international rival. And what are they doing? They're exporting their influence all around the world by buying them bridges, buying tunnels, doing infrastructure. That's what they're doing.
Belt and road stuff.
Right. What are we doing? Almost nothing. And when we do get involved in a country, we're usually toppling them or making things worse for them because we don't like their politics like we did in Venezuela. What USAID does with 0.5% of the budget is try to go out and do the kind of stuff that we want. prop up people, for example, in the West Bank who are not saying kill Israel, who are saying instead, let's try to work with them. Saying to people, stay in your own country. We'll try to improve the circumstances there so they're not showing up at our southern border. It seems like a relatively smart investment. If you were running a company, you would at least devote a little bit of your infrastructure to trying to plan ahead and trying to expand alliances and things like that. That's all that it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, to take it back to the original comments that I made, I think that there are some aspects of putting together foreign aid and doing that in a targeted way that makes a lot of sense. The problem is the way it's actually played itself out in recent years, right? Like, look at the role that the NGOs have played, for example, in exacerbating the war between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, you can't just ignore that.
I don't know that that's true. What are you referring to? Again, I'm so suspicious when you pull these crazy things because nobody on our airwaves is more steeped in crazy than you are. But what are you talking about?
Okay, so conspiracies were yesterday.
What is
today? It's headlines. That's the way it
That's
works.
right. Because now you have the conspiracy. But let me ask you this question about AID. Okay, let's assume for a moment that I agree with you, which I kind of do. If there's a wasteful, stupid program, I want to get rid of it just as much as you do.
Right.
Who put Elon Musk and a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds that don't even work for the government in charge of doing this? Isn't it Congress's job? The whole purpose of Congress is to do oversight over the executive branch. They allocated the money.
Right.
If someone's going to do oversight in our system of government, that's Congress, not some random South African-born a guy who has a
What,
failed.
you got something against immigrants now?
I'm just trying to talk to this audience in the language they understand. But like, I mean, what part of government that you studied is Elon Musk in right now?
Well, I mean, look, I from what I understand from government, they wouldn't like a guy like Elon Musk taking a sharp pencil to the spending practices of the United States because that's not business as usual in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, to the extent that Congress is supposed to be a steward, kind of like you alluded to, of the spending practices and auditing or whatever, it's not happening. In other words, we're $38 trillion in debt.
I understand. Well, that's a rationale for getting rid of our system of government. Our system of government is our system of government. It doesn't guarantee you a great outcome every time. You may not like what is being done. If there's going to be, by the way,
but it's way beyond that, though. It's way beyond just not liking what's going on.
If only we had inspectors general. Oh, wait a minute. We just fired them. You're taking away the actual people we hired as independents to do audits of things. You fire them and bring in a guy who has zero experience doing this kind of thing. And I would not have problem with him. Like I said to you on the air, I don't mind Doge as a concept. Yeah, go top to bottom in every agency. But no one gave you the authority to lock out people who do it for a living, get into the computer systems and start poking around just because you're rich.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess he does have the authority to do that because they gained access to that part of the headquarters or whatever, and this is moving forward.
Oh, wait, so that would mean any time has a successful coup, you'd think, oh, well, he got in.
Oh, a successful coup.
Well, what would you describe it if I told you that the country of Brazil had some rich guy go in, kick out all the people that work there, and then get access to all of the database of all of our Social Security numbers? You'd probably say, uh-oh, that government's in trouble.
Well, look, and you throw out the example of Brazil, but what about what happened in Argentina? With Javier Milei, or however you pronounce his last name. He basically went in there in like a bowl in a china shop, did the same stuff that Trump is doing now.
No, Trump's not doing it. Trump said today when one of his 90 questions, I'm like, I didn't give him permission to do A, B, or C. I kind of let him do his own thing. Who's the he? I mean, here's the thing.
So you just don't like Elon Musk being involved in this?
I like our system of government. I'm kind of crazy like that. I enjoy the Constitution as a concept. I enjoy the idea that the executive branch...
But what is it you think that Elon Musk, other than gaining access to information that maybe you don't think he should have, is that what you're objecting to?
I don't think he should, and the law doesn't think he should have. He's going and demanding access to top secret places where he doesn't have any clearance to be in there and bringing a bunch of 19-year-old college kids and moving couches and all this other kind of crazy stuff. Not to mention the fact that he also did an Office of Personnel Management and now at the Treasury Department, so he has your Social Security number and has access to all of your records, and you know the skeletons in your closet.
Well, actually, you know what? He can feel free to look at my Social Security fund because I'm sure by the time I get ready to retire, it'll be completely empty. So feel free to look at it and just watch it dwindle.
I thought you were going to say take a run at your excellent benefits here at the station, which you're totally happy about. You have no complaints whatsoever.
That aspect of it, I don't have any complaints. But the Social Security Administration, maybe I do. All right, it's Anthony Weiner, James Flippin here on the left versus the right.
It's the left versus the right. It's a 77 WABC debate. 77 WABC.
On the left, it's Anthony Weiner. On the right, it's James Flippin, same as he ever was. And we are talking a lot about the Middle East tonight, specifically Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Egypt. But the sponsor of all the activity from Hamas, of course, Iran and their mullahs. And there was some suggestion or maybe even some actual reporting over the summer that amid the assassination attempts against Trump, that Iran had also tried to get in on that. And there was the guy who got hired or brought into Texas who tried to hire some hitmen or something like that. And then he was brought up on federal charges. So there was some questions tonight from the White House reporters talking to Trump about this concept of what would happen if Trump was actually assassinated by Iran. And he responded.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why, lack of intelligence, perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader or close to a leader, frankly, if you had other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran.
And, you know, again, the key breaking news there that Trump said at the beginning, they haven't done that. So... And he's left some instructions like, you can reheat the note. Get the meatloaf and heat it up in the fridge.
Yeah. I mean, it's before we get into the funny part, like, I think the question was about the idea that Iran has basically put contracts out on the heads of like U.S. officials and everything else because of the Soleimani thing or whatnot. And I thought the funniest part of that was, I've left instructions. What does he think this is? He's like, yeah, you got to go. Oh, my God, the boss has been hit. Let's go to his desk and see if he left any notes. Like, look, I thought that what came after that was even more interesting, where, as I alluded to this earlier, where he kind of said, you know, I hate to do this. He's signing this silly proclamation saying maximum pressure, like, because up to now it's only been on 8. It's got to go up to 10 or something like that. But I think that Iran actually, look, the reason that Iran is close to getting a nuclear weapon right now is because Donald Trump tore up the Iran nuclear deal, right? So now they're closer. So he says, Trump says that was a terrible deal. I got rid of it. Obviously, Biden never put it back into place. So now the question is, all right, so if you tear up the nuclear deal, how do you stop them? He was asked, would you support Israel if they try to wipe out the nuclear capabilities of Iran? He didn't really give an answer. So maybe he's opening the door to negotiating with them. Iran is pretty weak right now, right? They lost Hezbollah. They lost Hamas. They try to attack Israel directly with hundreds and hundreds of drones, and the United States, thank you, Joe Biden, knocked them out of the air by and large. So they've never looked weaker. They had an assassination of a Hamas leader on their territory. So Iran might be open to maybe talking to Trump. This is where Trump could be at his best. He could be the Nixon to China on immigration. He could be the Nixon to China in the Middle East because he's so erratic. Maybe he is the kind of person that can get a deal done. I hope that he can.
Like crazy like a fox, you're saying.
I don't know. Just like, you know, someone who might not make, you know, someone like Joe Biden or a traditional Republican, you know, maybe Iran doesn't sit down with because they're like, we have too much bad blood with that guy. I don't really know what he's talking about. But just so you know, since you seem to be rusty on the Constitution recently, the way it works, if your president is knocked out, there's a vice president. You know, the guy you guys wanted to kill on January 6th, it was Mike Pence.
Oh, stop.
Now it's this guy Vance.
Just connecting back to the Iran nuclear deal.
By the way, it's Iran.
There were Democrats, including one who's heading to prison soon, who were not fans of the Iran nuclear deal.
Nor was Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer opposed it.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a lot of difficulty getting the inspectors in to be able to look at their ongoing enrichment programs.
No, well, here's all I can say is that Trump's own national security officials, when they were called before Congress to testify, has the Iran nuclear deal worked, they all said, Trump's people said, look, it hasn't made them good people. They're not good players on the world stage, but the nuclear program has come to an effective stop. That it succeeded in doing that. And look, I had problems with the Iran nuclear deal as well. But too many people seem to think, okay, well, Iran didn't start being a nice country. No, all it was supposed to do is stop them from developing a nuclear weapon. And everyone in the Trump administration who was in charge of this kind of stuff, national intelligence people, the CIA people, they said, yeah, everything that we can see, they're no longer developing a nuclear weapon. Now they've been accelerating it since the deal was torn up. And they're much more desperate than they were because they now know that their traditional capabilities are not strong enough to compete with Israel right now.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem that way. We saw, of course, the much hyped airstrike that Iran launched, and then it was like one drone that got through and was shut down or something like that. But I just think that it is nice to hear Trump in a forceful way saying, obviously, we as a United States, myself as the commander-in-chief, the entire apparatus of this U.S. government, do not tolerate a foreign nation putting out bounties on.
Hold on. Let me write that down. Okay,
no.
Trump's against us being killed by them.
To his point, Biden, to the extent that he even knew what was going on at that point, never came out with that level of forceful language, even while there was this ongoing reporting.
Right. But let me ask you, at the same time Trump says that, he took away the security from his former Secretary of State who was threatened by Iran, and one other guy who was also threatened by Iran. He
Bolton, maybe
Mattis was also.
Okay.
I mean, Mattis was the general that did the Soleimani hit. For goodness sakes, that guy's got to be on someone's list. Yeah, it's great. If that's the kind of thing that you like to have the president saying, I left a memo in my desk that's saying if anyone kills me, go kill him back.
If anyone
fine.
does anything to me, here's instructions about what you're supposed to do next.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there's clearly a lot of ongoing balls to juggle in terms of everything that's happening with the Middle East and the United States, whatever role it is or isn't supposed to play in that. Pivoting back to domestic affairs for a second, what are your thoughts at this point on RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard? They make it through key Senate committee votes today. You were messaging with me ahead of time that you thought this kind of gave an interesting, and maybe not in a positive way, aspect to the cabinet for the Trump White House.
Look, all I know is that there's not a single spine in the Republican Party. Like, you got Joni Ernst, who says that I can never vote for this guy Hegseth. She gets a lot of flack online, and she's like flopping all over herself. A woman in the military, when this guy said he doesn't support women in the military, who was a victim of sexual assault when this guy did sexual assaults. I just think that, and now you have
allegedly
correct, and now you have this guy Cassidy, who's a doctor. He's like, his whole career, he's a Republican, but his whole career is about teaching people the efficacy of vaccines and how they should take them. He makes a big to-do about how I can't support anyone who doesn't support vaccines, and now he stands on the floor of the Senate and says, well, I had a nice conversation with RFK Jr., and now I'm voting for him. Look, this is what
So it's not just that they're former Democrats. You actually have objections. What's your beef with Tulsi Gabbard?
Tulsi Gabbard, she's an agent of the Russians. Oh, God. I mean, she kind of.
Do you guys have anything in your political playbook other than saying Russia?
This is so ironic. We're the Democrats. That was your brand for like 60 years.
I remember when Obama told Mitt Romney, the 1980s want their foreign policy back.
What about Ronald Reagan? Have you guys forgotten all of your guys? What about Ronald Reagan?
I mean, the Soviet Union did exist up until a certain point.
No, but the whole point about the guy that brought down the Russian bear was not Carter. It was your guy. You were so proud of it for years and years.
And the Catholic Church.
Oh my God, that's right. I forgot who I was talking to. Look, I'm fine. People are going to die because of RFK. Bottom line.
Because of the vaccines?
Yeah, because fewer people get vaccines, and wherever there are fewer people getting vaccines, and more people dying. That's just a correlative fact, right? And with Tulsi Gabbard, she says, I believe Assad's intelligence rather than I believe my intelligence. Now I'm going to go run our intelligence. And I don't know what's going on with that other Yahoo who wants to run the FBI. Did he get approved today also?
Kash Patel? No, I don't think he got pushed through yet.
Yeah, this is great. It's a great bunch of Yahoos. It's like the bar scene in Star Wars. You guys are lining up there.
Much in the same way, what's fascinating, you bring up the Kash Patel. I think that the entire apparatus, and we've had our disagreements over this, concerning the FBI needs a total reset. In other words, I feel and it came out today. I don't know if you saw this. I know we've had our disagreements over January 6th. Did you see where like 40% of the FBI agents were working on that case, by the way?
Yeah, they think if I actually had a higher number. I saw
even you have to say, what the heck is that?
It's the largest single mass crime in American history. Did you see how many people? You didn't watch any of the video. Are you the only one in America that didn't watch the video?
So wait a minute. I'm fully aware that it was the largest prosecution in American history.
Look how many people
apparatus from the Justice Department.
Do you think it was AI that made all those images of people beating the crap out of cops on January 6th? Well, what do you think happened there?
Do
you think it was a big misunderstanding? Oh, it was a whole
but the whole idea of cops having the crap beaten out of them is a total mischaracterization. We probably shouldn't do this right up against the break. But, for example, they gassed themselves that day, the Capitol Police. They actually tear gassed themselves.
All right. Yeah, the cops tear gassed themselves, says James Flippin on the left versus right.
He's Anthony Weiner. I'm James Flippin. When we come back, a little Governor Murphy? Is he harboring illegal aliens?
And if so, is she sleeping on a Murphy bed?
Oh, I like that. We'll be right back.
It's the left versus the right. In the right corner, it's James Flippin. In the left corner, it's Anthony Weiner. 77 WABC.
Little Steely Dan. I like it, Phil. James Flippin with Anthony Weiner. It's the left versus the right. And Anthony, I hope you're going to have your Wheaties on Saturday because it's going to be 2 hours.
And yes, for all of the listeners out there, that means no middle this week.
Yeah, well, I mean, is there really a middle in the United States anymore?
There is. It's when people complain all about the name of that show so much. Like, you're not the middle, you're the left. I'm like, compared to this place, I'm the middle. But
that is kind of a good point.
But yeah, so we're going to have a left versus right. It's going to be 2 hours. And not for nothing, thank you, Donald Trump, for giving us plenty of content.
That's
it's
for
like
sure.
Getting this down to an hour or two is getting hard.
That is very true. But we're actually going to go a little local here for 77 WABC. You know, Anthony, we got a lot of listeners in New Jersey.
We do.
And the gubernatorial race is coming up in November, I guess it'll be, because there's the series of Democrats and series of Republicans vying to be the next governor in New Jersey. Governor Murphy is term limited. But Murphy is continuing to make himself heard. He was taking part in a forum at Montclair State University over the weekend. And, of course, Montclair, as we like to call it, the People's Republic of Montclair, very, very far left in terms of most people there and the way they think about politics. But Murphy said in kind of a defiant moment, hey, my wife and I are keeping at our house. I don't even know the right way to say it. Have someone living at our house who is, and he said it in a really mealy-mouthed way. He said she's not, her immigration status is not yet where she wants it to be or something like that. And he said, so we thought, let's have her live with us. And she's living above the garage or something like that. And then Tom Homan, the border czar on Fox News, said, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to prosecute Governor Murphy. His office then came out and said, well, it was sort of more a hypothetical that was being discussed. So your thoughts on all that?
I just think it's getting a little bit crazy. Now it's a sign. You know, by the way, Murphy, since he's term limited, he's one of these people that looks in the mirror and sees a presidential candidate, right?
100%. That's what I said to people in the newsroom today.
Yeah, so he's like trying to contort himself. It's like it's not enough to be in favor of rights for immigrants. Now you got to have a few of them like in your house.
Yeah,
it's a little bit ridiculous.
That's how he beefs up his bona fides.
It's a little bit ridiculous. It's also a little bit ridiculous. Honan's going to go arrest some housekeeper in Montclair. I mean, or who's in someone's basement,
Middletown, I guess.
Middletown, whatever it is. I mean, I think
that's not what ICE is doing, though. Or
well,
what they're looking to
here's
do.
What the thing is. They've got to decide. ICE always gets pulled in two directions. One group of people says, go arrest the people that are the undocumented that are here illegally. And the same guys have to go crack down on employers that employ 20 or 30 or 50 of them, right?
True.
So administrations have to make a choice about who they go after and who they make an example out of. If you really want to solve the problem, you've got to do enforcement. I don't deny it. But to be honest with you, the employers have to be part of the solution also. But if you're an elected official, are you really adding to the conversation by saying, I'm like keeping one in my basement? I don't think that adds very much.
It doesn't really. But at the same time, it's kind of in keeping with the way this issue has been treated politically lately. Like, in other words, in that same forum, Murphy said, the problem is you have this ongoing attempt to conflate immigration status with a crime. And, like they used to say,
Yeah.
there is no person that's illegal.
Yeah, I also say that too. I don't say it with that sarcastic tone of voice. I think that Democrats are smart by starting every value statement about immigration this way, saying we are a nation of immigrants, we get stronger with more immigration. However, we're also a nation of laws, and we want people to follow the laws. We want there to be a process. Those two things are not in contradiction. You can have immigration and be a nation of laws. Now, many people in the Trump White House, that Stephen Miller Yahoo, he doesn't want immigration of any sort, right? He's just anti-immigration. And that's a position, but I don't think it's a popular one. So if I'm Democrats, I'm like, first of all, put the part about law enforcement right there in the beginning of your statement. You remember in 2020, they did a show of hands. How many people believe you shouldn't be prosecuted if you cross the border illegally? And everyone said, yeah, you should. That's a dumb position to be. Most rank and file Democrats don't believe that. They want fairness. Everyone wants some fairness here.
I just think about what is Murphy's angle here. And of course, now the spokesperson says, well, he didn't really mean what he said. And okay, fine. Maybe that's the case. He was kind of feeling himself as the crowd was clapping.
That
He's there in Montclair, whatever.
That happens.
But it is also interesting to note that if he is going to run for president, he's got to weed his way through the primary season and all the other. That typically means going as far left as you possibly can, right?
Well,
so,
it's hard to tell. In 2025 is going to be an interesting year. You got the mayor, obviously, in New York City. You've got Governor of Virginia, Governor of New Jersey. If there really is this shift going on in the Democratic Party, a more kind of moderate kind of thing, and that's something that I'm testing downtown, if that's actually happening, maybe guys are starting to think about this a little differently. If his answer, though, to this moment of immigration is, I've got some person in my basement, come get him, that just seems to me someone that's kind of missing the moment.
Yeah, and look, maybe he's not actually interested in continuing his political career running for the White House. Maybe he just wants to be one of those guys that goes on TV shows and sells books and does the speaking tours.
Just as long as he's not someone who wants to be on the radio. Because we don't need the competition, man. You and I, we don't have marketable skills. We need this gig.
True. Absolutely. Our mouth is all we've got going for us.
But a similar thing is going on. It's going to be going on with our mayor's race here in New York City. How do you talk about immigration? If I have a critique of Eric Adams, he's been all over the map. I'm welcoming the buses. I'm angry about the buses. I'm complaining about Biden. I'm the Biden of Brooklyn. I'm all over the map. I think New Yorkers and New Jersey residents, what are they called?
New
Jerseyans. I think they're prepared to not agree with you 100% so long as they kind of know where you're coming from. They get a sense that you kind of have the similar value structures they do.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that, like him or hate him, and we know how we stand on that particular position, but with Trump, his candid way, his way of constantly speaking what he feels and being an open book and being as transparent as he is, people like that in this day and age.
Yeah, they might, except when every time he opens his mouth on one of these things, it's clear he doesn't really quite understand stuff. He wants to take over Gaza. He wants to hug Iran. And he somehow thinks we're giving condoms to Hamas. So who the heck even knows?
What I don't understand is how we always constantly fit this into 1 hour of programming. But come back on Saturday. It'll be 2 hours of the left versus the right. He's Anthony Weiner. I'm James Flippin. Bill O'Reilly coming your way next on 77 WABC.
It's Ocean Drive in Coney Island.
Ocean Drive is the only luxury rentals in New York with a spectacular ocean view. You wake up in the morning and breathe that ocean air. I'll certify that you're going to live 10 years longer. When I became successful, I wanted to live on the ocean. If you have worked hard, you deserve an apartment on Ocean Drive too. Go to oceandrivenyc.com and reward yourself.
If you're a policeman, fireman, doctor, nurse, or teacher, you qualify for a limited time offer at oceandrivenyc.com. Terms and conditions apply.